Welcome to the Arachnos podcast. My name is Jessica Stokes and I'm at the Royal Agricultural University in Cirencester, here today talking to Professor David Main, who has come to talk to us about the Hennovation thematic network. David, would you like to start by telling us a little bit more about your TN?
Yes, so Hennovation got a great title and it was a great project. No, it was a good project because it aimed to apply the methodology of practice-led, multi-actor groups of farmers working together to solve problems in the laying hen sector. And we had 5 different countries involved in this, and we had across the sector. So we had some in the in laying hen farm, focused on laying hen farms, and some focused on the slaughter end of the process. And the general idea was how to bring together different actors, so the scientists, the vets, with the producers, facilitate them to encourage them to look at challenges and then develop their own solutions, develop their own evidence-based solutions to the problems that they saw.
Fantastic. Okay. And could you tell us a little bit more about your specific role within the thematic network?
Okay. So I was project coordinator. So I was obviously the link person with the commission. But there was a team of us that pulled together the partners that were involved in the project design, and then of course as project coordinator worked with project manager, who was Lisa in this case, to actually make sure that the project was delivered on time, and then of course deliver the final reports and communications with the commission. So it was holding it together, dealing with the bureaucracy, the grants side of things, and of course the audit and the reporting side. But I have to say the crucial role on this one was a project manager who made it happen on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, and do you think that was key to the success of the project? Would you like to share kind of some learnings around how it was managed?
Yeah, I think it was the absolute success of it that was crucial. So, although I was very much involved in the design and the construction of it, during the project, we had regular meetings together of the project partners, and that was a genuine team effort. We needed somebody who had the eye on the detail of bringing together which group was working on which, and had a clear overview of the whole project, and that was Lisa. So absolutely, the project manager I thought was a very valuable. It really made the project happen. And the point about Lisa, of course, is that she had a real understanding of the methodology, which for our proposal was about sharing, but it was about from a bottom-up approach. So it was really getting the farmers' interest with their expertise, and then them being in charge of what the challenges were needed to be explored.
So can you think of an example then of how the project management and understanding that methodology helped to deal with any challenges or problems that arose within the network?
Well, inevitably with large European projects, there's always a different rate of work and a different starting point, shall we say, with each project. So with each element or task. So Lisa had a good grasp of what needed to be done, and then of course we worked differentially with each partner to make sure they were on the same page. But that was definitely part of the learning. We were happy with that. That was to recognise that people are in a different place is very important, and not to get worried about it, not too anxious about it. So as long as we kept an eye on the final deliverables, we allowed people to come along at their own pace, because each group was in a different starting place. And the other thing that brought it all together, well, in our case, it was the facilitators that were based in each country, and we had a very team-like approach. We had the project management group, which was doing the boring, shall I say, nitty-gritty bureaucracy stuff. but actually where the action happened was the facilitators in each country, and they had a real sense of community, I think, where they came together, worked out the methodology themselves, shared practice as they went, developed their own community of practice around the facilitation, and that was the real spirit of the project, not at the management committee level, but at the facilitation level.
Okay, so would you say that the kind of upskilling the facilitators was another kind of key to success?
Yeah, absolutely. Upskilling the facilitators and ensure they had ownership of the approach. Definitely, there was no fixed route to do it at the start. We sat down, everybody brought their own experiences to the table, and together generated the detail of what to do with the facilitation, and that came from the facilitators, and that gang of facilitators were then able to support each other in their interaction with other networks and complain about them or celebrate them as they went through.
Brilliant. Okay, so what then do you think were the most useful or interesting outcomes of the project? Maybe something that was unexpected.
The power of it was very clear, but we sort of knew in theory that the power of it was there. But I want to highlight a change of mindset from the scientists. For some of the scientists for this bottom-up approach was a totally new approach for them. So for them to realise that actually they didn't need to go in with a fixed idea of an experimental plan of this is the husbandry feature that we wanted to investigate, and we needed a controlled experiment to explore this, that and the other, but going in with an open book and saying to producers, what's your problems? Can we design a small farm trial to look at various solutions? Can we work with different technical people and companies to propose solutions? So yeah, going into the project with an open book is a scary thing for scientists to do who like control, who like to be precise. So the scientists involved that were new to the process, definitely by the end, was a real advocates of that the farmer-led approach. And the other learning was one of the groups where the farmers weren't initially enthusiastic, because actually they were brought together by a certification program which said that their farms weren't really achieving what they needed to achieve. So they were actually initially reluctant to participate and engage, but with the power of good facilitation, they developed their own sense of ownership and empowerment, and were able then to deliver real change. So I saw that as a real example of the power of facilitation can change an initial reluctance to actually a real sense of community of practice, trying to improve. So in other words, you don't have to work with the already engaged farmers.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a process that can be accessible for all, but perhaps it's about that initial engagement and getting people on the journey.
Getting people on the journey and getting people there is clearly a hard step, and it's easy to get people that are interested. They'll always turn up. The motivated people always turn up. But if you can use an alternative mechanism, such as a farm assurance certification program, to get people in the same room, then once you've got a facilitator motivated on getting that group together, then they can bring about change as well.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've talked in quite a bit of detail about kind of the success at the kind of farm and group level. Could we talk a little bit more about the kind of partnership across Europe and how that worked? Because you said there were 5 countries who were involved.
Yes.
And presumably each kind of academic institution had their own culture, way of working with their individual farmers and vets and industry and experts. So how did that work? What worked well with working kind of in that kind of multi-actor collaborative way?
Yeah, good question. So there were 5 countries, 19 networks. And the project had to deal with, we could set ourselves a target of sharing knowledge between the networks. And in the end, we landed up with sharing experience within country first.
Okay.
And so, for example, in the UK, we brought the farmers that were in 5 or 6 groups, I think there were, to do a share fair where the farmers each presented to other farmers and really shared their expertise, experiences, and that worked very well within country. I have to say that the sharing between countries did not work as well, and I'm not quite sure what the solution is. We tried webinars to share ideas. We tried passing around technical information between groups, but it was never the same as the within country UK. So maybe we just have to accept there is a limit to the sharing part of it. But we certainly, the other challenge with that was trying to do that in a time scale. We had, was it a 30-month project, and to get to developing individual 19 networks, then to share them across other networks to share results exactly is not really doable in 30 months. I think we would have needed longer to do proper sharing across countries.
You're also trying to share live, like farm to farm or farm group to farmer group across country, which is also quite ambitious given the language barrier and potential culture barriers.
The language was an obvious issue. We tried to do a bit of UK with the Netherlands because the Netherlands could cope with English. English can't cope with Dutch, of course. But so we had some limited success there. But essentially, the language barrier when you're talking about farmers was a real issue which we didn't solve, funnily enough.
Okay. And then just thinking about kind of networking and kind of engaging other farmers beyond the initial project groups or farmer groups, what activity did the project involve itself with there? Was there any kind of wider engagement?
Well, there was wider engagement in the usual project outputs. So we did put a bit of effort into this. So, for example, the video, Hennovation video, I think is a really nice example of advocating the farmer-led approach, and we did produce some nice technical outputs on feather pecking in laying hens, for example, which was great. But I think inevitably within a 30-month project there wasn't much more than that. That it was really dependent on the local country and what engagement they had with the farming press, etc., which some did. It was more of a reactive type of approach rather than a major grand plan, but I think the legacy is that the approach is well described, works well, and is available to particularly want to encourage scientists to engage in it so that they can do it in other places. And for the UK, the value is to persuade government to make funding available for facilitation of other initiatives, and it's looking like that has been well received by government. So that is likely to happen in the future.
So what part of Hennovation would you say is your most proudest moment or output or activity?
I do really like the Hennovation video as a nice summary of the approach. That's really worked a treat. But I think the case example which I often talk most about is turning sceptical farmers that are pushed together and being able to show that they can bring about real change is the most valuable policy tool, because it opens people's eyes to how you can start by identifying farms at risk, which could be by legislation or schemes, etc. And you can land up with a positive behaviour change approach if you have the right facilitation. So the power is absolutely in the facilitator. That is the start and the end of the exercise, and so the project has demonstrated the potential for facilitation.
And it also dispels the myth that innovation and change comes from the top 5, 10, 15% of farmers who are driving things forward. You can take anybody at any level of spectrum on their farm.
Has knowledges and experience and that brings to the table. Absolutely, we can work with all sorts, not just the pioneers.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'd like to just finish by asking you what you think that Arachnos can do for Hennovation now. So moving forward into this project and thinking about what the aims of Arachnos are and how Arachnos can kind of facilitate or maybe upscale the outreach of Hennovation going forward.
We should build upon success. Absolutely, we should do that. I'm a persistent advocate of the process rather than the technical content. And sometimes you might still have the best technical output, whether it's produced by a scientist or by a farmer-led innovation group. But the value of it really only comes when people are actually living and breathing it and working it. And that's the point about the process, is if you've got a facilitator that's bringing out those with the local knowledge and local expertise has the maximum impact. So I think Arachnos could and should focus particularly on the process of facilitating and bringing out the knowledge rather than the knowledge itself.
Mm-hmm. Presumably to inspire others.
Inspire others to drive change. Absolutely is where we need to be at, rather than the technical gory detail which is available these days very easily.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David.
The Arachnos project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme under Grant Agreement number 817863.